إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد، إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات. عملوا الصالحات finally is good deeds. عملوا الصالحات is good deeds. Act on Islam. This is the second characteristic of the aspects of saving you from being among those that are Allah's. This includes every kind of deed, both the internal actions of the heart, that's included, and the external, by your tongue, your hands, and body parts, that is all included. Any deed is included in this verse, Amilus-Saalihaat. Whether it may be ordained, whether it may be sunnah, whether it may be a right of Allah, whether it may be a right of human being, all of that is included in Amilus-Saalihaat. Amilus-Saalihaat encompasses all deeds, heart actions and body actions. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Advise and recommend to one another with truth and patience. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. These are number 3, number 4 of the 4 fundamental principles. Iman is not like a rock. They find rocks thousands of years old and they find it just like it was. You can have a rock and you put it for centuries to come and it never changes. Iman is not like that. It would be nice if Iman like that, but Iman is not like that. Iman fluctuates. And there are forces behind that fluctuation, behind that change. You have the force of a nafs. Inna an-nafsa la'ammaratun bis-su'. And you also got, number 2, there are 3 things. Shayateen al-ins. And then you got shayateen al-jinn, which are mentioned in the Quran. These forces are out to get you. Sometimes one of them attacks you. Sometimes 2 attack you. And sometimes you got all 3 on you, attacking you to misguide you. Sometimes they attack you with full force. Sometimes they attack you lightly. So how do you keep all these forces in check? 2 ways. تواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Advise and recommend in truth and patience. Your Muslim brothers, help you restrain, and your Muslim sisters, help you restrain the evil nafs, the temptation of the shaitan, the temptation of the jinn, and the ins, the evil ins that instigate you to do haram. By how? By the righteous advising you. You need your brothers because when one is alone, he melts. If you have 10 cups and you put 1 ice cube in each one of those 10 cups, then you have 1 cup by itself and you have 10 cubes in that cup. Which one melts faster? When each one is individual, it's going to melt faster. تواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Why did Allah say تواصوا instead of أوصوا? Why did Allah say تواصوا instead of أوصوا? The reason for the word تواصوا rather than أوصوا is it was used because advising and recommending the truth and patience is not directed to a certain category of believers. It's for every believer, for every group, for every category. Tawasaw is da'wah. Da'wah is not a monopoly, nor is it exclusive. It's not for a certain category over another. It's not exclusive for some over another. Had it been also, then yeah, it may have been directed to a certain group. But when it's tawasaw, it means it's open for all. It's the duty of all. It's the duty of all what? It's everyone's duty to advise and everyone's duty to accept advice. That's what tawasaw means instead of also. There's no one better than another in this ordeal. There's no Shaykh immune from this. There's from getting advice, and there's no students. There's no layman immune from getting advice or giving advice. Students, Sheikhs, Imam, we're all equal. There's no hierarchy in this matter. Everyone in this we're all together in this matter. Like some countries, for example, they have the agency called the Agency of Propagation, the Virtue, propagation of virtue and the prevention of vice. And some countries, they try to limit ordaining the good in da'wah to that group right there. Had it been also, they would have had proof. But when it's tawasul, no. Every believer must advise his brother, and every brother must accept. We're all in this equal. There's no send button, yet no receive. We all got in this matter a send and a receive button. A believer to a believer is like two hands. One washes the other. One hand can't wash itself by itself. You need another hand to wash the hand. And that's what a believer is to another believer. If you want others to accept your teaching and advice, then you start with yourself. No matter who you think you are, you start by accepting advice of other people. We all have our faults. Wallahi, we all have our faults. And we all have our weakness. The ummah is one body. And we're here to help each other in this weakness. Someone may have a weakness in doubts. Doubts are like shubuhat. He gets doubts, for example, about Allah. Many people get that doubt. The shaitan instigates and he reaches a level where he begins to instigate doubts in even Allah, in the existence of Allah. Some people begin to have these shubuhat. But there's another person, a believer, who is strong in resisting the desires, the shahawat, the woman, the musical instruments, and that's called shahawat. The one who's strong in doubts has weakness in looking at haram, for example. So the one strong in an area helps his brother that's weak in the other area. If you're strong in shubuhat, you help your brother who's weak in shubuhat. You're strong in shahawat, you help your brother who's weak in shahawat. The tree of Iman, in order for it to be sustained, needs to be watered. You nourish your Iman by advising each other. Look at the table in your house. You leave for a month or two, or you're living in the house and you just don't wipe it off. It becomes dusty. When we advise each other and recommend for each other, it's wiping the dust off the table, off the hearts. Note the surah starts off with Iman alone, Aamanoo. Deeds, Amilus-Saalihaat, it's alone. More like an individual capacity. Aamanoo, believe, Amilus-Saalihaat, more like an individual capacity. Now when it gets to advising, it's like a group-like setting. Because as a Muslim, you're a member of this ummah. Now it's a group effort. The ummah all together. All that comes from watawasaw. The third fundamental principle, advising in haqq, that's in reality what the author mentioned, da'wah. That's what we taught in the third principle. Haqq here, tawasaw bis sabri, وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Haqq here is a word used to summarize the revelation of Allah, the Quran and the Sunnah. تواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. The fourth fundamental and final principle is here it's sabr, patience. Patience comes at the end like a bonus. This is like a bonus. It comes on top of all the good that we've already been talking about in the surah. If you look in between the lines of the surah, sabr, patience, is in reality within the lines of the surah 4 times. 1, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. A great portion of Iman comes through sabr. Some scholars were quoted as saying sabr is half of Iman. That's one. It's mentioned in between the lines right there. The second one, Amilus-Saalihaat, those who do good deeds. Isn't sabr, patience, part of good deeds? We said Amilus-Saalihaat is all the deeds. Isn't patience deeds? So it falls under number 2. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ. Give advice. Isn't sabr included in the general word of haqq? We said haqq is all the Quran and the Sunnah. So isn't sabr part of that? So it's in the third one. But then finally, it's specified individually to show how important and essential and mighty it's supposed to be in your life and for you to achieve success. That's why it's mentioned as the fourth level of the surah. Patience to be obedient to Allah, patience to stay away from the sins, and patience on and in trial and tribulations. Keep in mind though, patience here refers to all patience, all type of patience, small matters and big matters. Even patience from boredom, patience from not being bored. The shaitan will come and cast boredom upon you to deter you from ibadah and from good deeds. So you have to have patience to resist that. Also, you have to have patience in what you're all doing here. What you're doing here. You have to have patience in learning, to learn. And everything. For example, in ibadah, if you take a huge jug and pour it over a plant, and you finish that jug and leave it, what happens? Or is it better to go to that plant and every day pour a cup or two, and then the next day pour a cup to do? Which one is a better scenario? To pour that huge jug and just leave it, or every day pour a cup or two? That plant will never survive if you pour the whole jug and just leave it. You must pour a cup or two for it to stay alive. Among the shaitanic tactics is that sometimes he lets one go forth in some ibadah. Someone newly to Islam, or he may listen to a khutbah or a lecture. Suddenly he wants to do qiyam from Isha to Fajr. That's why in my talk on the ultimate pleasure of a believer, the one on qiyam, I said start, but start slow and gradual. Matters that start gradual and continue are better than that big lump sum that you do at one time and that's the end of it. That big jug that you pour and just leave the tree. The shaitan may let one do qiyam all night so he can pour all the water he has. So the next day and following days and weeks and years, you won't do nothing. Islam is a step-by-step process. So you have to have patience to resist boredom in the shaitanic tactics in ibadah. Like ibadah, for example, you need patience in what you're doing here. What you're doing here is learning. You see someone coming so eager and passionate about learning, then a few months later, that passion for learning Islam and Tawheed and all that suddenly dies and fades away. You need patience, that's why. Sometimes there's a reason behind it, and sometimes it's totally from the shaitan. I know many who, for example, want to go to Medina. And you know there's an application process. They're passionate about applying. And time goes by the time they send their papers in and by the time they get accepted. By the time they get accepted, their passion for talab al-ilm has faded and died away. And they don't want to go no more. That's why Al-Khadr kept telling Musā in the Quran, إِنَّكَ لَن تَسْتَطِيعَ مَعِيَ صَبْرًا. You're here in a noble cause, talab al-ilm. So you need patience. You don't learn Islam overnight. It requires persistence and patience. Sometimes you must be patient with your teacher. You got to take that. I've sat in front of some shuyukh, 4 years I can remember one of them. I don't remember, I've seen a smile on his face. And if you ask him, when you ask him, and you have to ask him, the chances are slim that you're not going to get scolded and embarrassed. But that never caused us to leave their sight. Let me tell you, Shaykh Ahmad asked a famous Shaykh, Dr. Nasr al-Aql. Nasr al-Aql, he has a master's and PhD in Aqidah. Very knowledgeable in Aqidah. He taught generations. He was asked, who's the most knowledgeable in Aqidah? This Shaykh, Shaykh Ahmad, is asking Shaykh Nasr al-Aql, who is the most knowledgeable in Aqidah? Shaykh Nasr al-Aql said, I don't know anyone on the face of this earth more knowledgeable in Aqidah than Shaykh Abdullah al-Ghunayman. He has a PhD. Shaykh Abdullah al-Ghunayman. I actually believe that to be a very accurate statement. If not, maybe, very, very, very close to it. Actually, it's more very, very accurate statement. This Shaykh Abdullah al-Ghunayman, he taught me and my father before me. And when he taught me, I used to frequent his house a lot. My father called him at one point and requested that he teach me. And in addition, he taught us in the Islamic University. He was a teacher there in the regular curriculum of the Islamic University. He also had a chair in the Haram where he taught at times 3 days a week between Maghrib and Isha, and at times 4 times a week between Maghrib and Isha. And I also frequented his house. I may be mistaken, I don't want to put this on my account, but looking back at it, I don't think I've ever seen him ever smile during my stay with him or my study with him. I actually once took a friend with me to his house. I was going to go learn something, and I took a friend. I tagged along a friend with me. My friend, when we were talking, he asked a question, and he got scolded real badly. When we got back in the car, he said, "Don't you ever bring me here again." He was tough. He was tough, and it's, inshallah, it's because he wanted to raise people properly. Maybe it's his nature. I'm there to learn from this giant, and that's what it is. May Allah grant him and my father a long life full of deeds and barakah. The point is, one needs patience in every aspect of learning. Today, if you don't baby your students, one loses patience suddenly and he's gone. And you'll be lucky if you don't find him posting something negative about you if you don't pamper him or her. Keep patience between your eyes. It's a journey. You're a journey on talab al-ilm, and you need patience for it. And that is what you gotta keep. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ.